Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the world's busiest music nerd, and today we're reviewing the latest Mrs. Bailey child, Bryan. Here we have the latest son of Missouri-based single mother of three, Mrs. Belinda Bailey, and her first child in 5 years after her debut with twins Brooke and Benjamin, commonly referred to as Ben for short. She's been known before as a member of the St. Louis Public Schools Parent-Teacher Association, and her previous children, both Brooke and Ben, have been praised for high grades and lots of extracurricular accomplishments, not to mention having a lot of friends. You just gotta look at Ben's Harvard scholarship, or even Brooke's promising internship position at NASA, to really see the talent on display here in this family. And all of this really begs the question, what can Bryan do that fans of Mrs. Bailey haven't already seen with her previous children? And the answer, it seems like, is not much, which isn't necessarily a horrible thing. Many people in the past few years have praised the Robinsons, just across the street, for their really consistent family tree, with Ruth, Rebecca, Ryan, and even Rudy. And so all of this is to say that the expectations going into Bryan weren't very high, but somehow he still found ways to disappoint. The opening to his life is really slow, filled with shrill little tones that don't quite come out to intelligible words, or just a general inability to do even simple things like stand up straight or go potty. And though many of these kinks get ironed out in the next handful of years, you can't help but notice that other children are still ahead of the curve in that respect. Moving on to periods like daycare and kindergarten, we get a few more intelligible lines, but the writing here just isn't it. Take what he said here to one of his, if not his very first friend here. Let's do a tag game. That's just ineloquent, and his friend rightfully did not end up playing tag. His life continues like this for a while with the social awkwardness until we get into middle school, and then he embarrasses himself even more. An interesting thing to note here is that Bryan is gay, the first of the Bailey children to be so, which is a bold direction to go in, but it really just doesn't pay off in this life, especially because he never really tells anyone else until much later, which cripples his social prospects, both now and in the future. The comparisons to other children here who began more fruitful love periods is apt, and it's indicative of a general trend for Mrs. Bailey and this child towards falling behind the curve, not in an avant-garde kind of way, more just being poorly adjusted. Heading into high school and beyond, we get some hints of where Bryan would take the rest of his life, with interesting new tendency towards acne. We also hear him getting into music for the first time, listening to things called albums, which I know I've been requested to review before, but I'm just not quite sure it would make sense, given it's kind of outside of my specialty. Despite the new passions, though, we're still just seeing very few friends, none of the lush socialization we saw in past children like Benjamin, who at the same time in his life was captain of the football team and the valedictorian. It really makes you think about all the squandered potential that Bryan has. His career path, musicologist, is kind of like a fun old-fashioned take on something like a reviewer, or a new wavy take on the classic musician, that strays from having any skill, but doesn't let up on the difficulty factor in terms of paying rent. It's definitely more of an underground taste than, for instance, his sister's career path of aerospace engineer, but you have to wonder how much of that is actually to his merit and his own tastes, and not just a lazy fallback when his grander ambitions fell off. Around this point, he does actually make a real friend, even if it's a little late, Keith Ward, with whom he runs a fairly unsuccessful podcast on the side. Directions like this are definitely appreciated, but this late into a project, you can't really help but feel like he's directionless. However, basically all this innovation and energy peters out towards the end of his life here, and sections like Senility and Geriatrics are played without any of the pomp and circumstance that more successful lives usually have at this point. Even Keith's tragically early death didn't really bring any gravitas to Bryan's life. It really just robbed him of even the little bits of vibrance and color that were still there. Some of the passion and vibrance from Mrs. Bailey's other kids are still here, but the lack of long-term friends and partners can really be felt for the whole 89-year duration of this life, a really hefty length for someone so unremarkable. What's really sad is that Mrs. Bailey has made statements that Bryan is going to be her last full-length child. She may still do adoptions in the future, but it's really impossible to know, and it seems unlikely, meaning that Bryan may be her last hurrah, and as one, he really doesn't quite, get there. There are good moments in this life. As I've mentioned from before, from the unique affliction to career path he took into pimple podcasting and general DIY attitude. But there's not enough to get past the glaring omissions of what Mrs. Bailey's children have been known for previously, which is really unparalleled ambition and large friend groups. All of that is to say, I'm feeling a light to decent 3 on this life. Transition. Have you given this life a live? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Mrs. Bailey, forever.